You're listening to Head Voice, bringing you inside the minds of the best in contemporary acapella. I'm Evan, and this week we were joined by Andrew Kim from Backtrack in New York. They are a high-energy, professional, 5-piece group that tours across the country and also puts out YouTube videos. We actually recorded this episode a few weeks back when we were doing the Aka Open segment, so sorry to our listeners and to Andrew that it's taken so long to get out. But since then, we saw him crush it with Backtrack on the Carnegie Hall stage. So we talked a little bit about his preparation for that, how Backtrack got started, how they transitioned from the digital to the live space, among other things. Real quickly before we get into the episode, if you've been listening for a while and you like what you hear, it would mean a lot to us if you could throw us a like on Facebook, follow us on SoundCloud, or most importantly, review us on iTunes. We have 0 reviews on iTunes, and it would really, really help us if you just gave us a 5-star rating, if that's how you feel. If you hate us, a 1-star rating will do. I won't cry about it that much. And as we mentioned in the previous episode, we will be at SoJam 15, so if you're going to be in attendance, make sure to hit us up, say hi. I'm blathering on. Please enjoy this episode with Andrew Kim.
So, hello, Andrew. Thank you for joining us on Head Voice. We're super stoked to have you on. I'm just going to start it by handing it off to you and ask if you'd like to just give us a little introduction about yourself and where you're from and how you sort of got into music and how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, so first of all, I'm super excited to be on the podcast. I've been listening to you guys since the beginning, and anytime I go on a run, I'm listening to you guys most of the time, and Danny's podcast as well. So, yeah, it's awesome to be on here. So I started singing back in like 5th and 6th grade. I sang in a professional choir school called the American Boy Choir School. Unfortunately, they just closed down for financial reasons like a couple weeks ago. But anyways, I started singing there, and I would, the choir would tour around the country, got to sing at Carnegie Hall, Lincoln Center, a bunch of beautiful venues. It was a really special experience. Since then, I continued singing in choirs. And then in high school, I started studying music theory. So I took AP Music Theory, really got into that, got into composing, and went to music school at Northwestern, where I majored in music composition. I sang in a group called Extreme Measures at Northwestern. Fun fact, I didn't get into any groups at Northwestern during my auditions, so I had to join a brand new group. So I did that for 4 years, music directed it for 3, which was definitely a huge learning experience, as I'm sure you guys know.
Yeah.
After college, got my master's at NYU, decided I didn't want to do film scoring, and then started recording. It started as recording like college a cappella groups, and then about 2 years after, I started Backtrack with some of my friends from Northwestern. And since then, I've been performing with Backtrack and recording college a cappella and some other a cappella groups as well.
Yeah, so it's pretty clear that Backtrack is kind of, your baby. And so kind of what was the idea when you were just getting started? Like just trying to make some YouTube videos for fun, or with the idea of eventually going pro in the horizon?
Yeah, the idea was never to go pro or full-time. It was basically 2 of my closest friends from Northwestern Extreme Measures. We were just sitting down. We've always joked about the idea of starting a group. We just decided to start making YouTube videos. The idea was, let's try and make a viral video and basically pick a song that is really current, and basically pick a song that's current right now and see if we can get 1 million views. And since I was doing the whole acapella production thing, we knew we could turn it around within about a month, which is faster than pretty much most groups out there. So that was kind of the goal in the beginning, was just to try and make a viral video. That didn't happen, surprise, because making a viral video just takes a lot of luck. But what we were able to do is build a YouTube following, which is actually more beneficial long term. So basically we decided to make videos once a month, and the same people kept coming back, the same subscribers kept coming back, and every video we made, we gained more subscribers, more views, and until we are where we are now.
Right. So I find this super interesting because I feel like the way Backtrack was created is kind of opposite to most a cappella groups in that you were essentially formed to make YouTube videos and essentially formed to make media and like live content. So and you guys started in 2013. So how have you seen growth in Backtrack from the start of making YouTube videos internally and then to now?
First, it was getting fast at everything we're doing. So really just being able to make music videos really quickly.
Yeah.
Also, for me, the big reason why I started the group was so I can improve my own production skills.
Yeah.
Every month I had to do an arrangement and a mix. And whereas if I'm recording a college group, there's this whole long process of recording and mixing, which usually takes like a couple months. So to speed that up, I was able to get better at mixing faster and arranging. We're able to film better videos. None of us went into this process knowing how to make a video at all. So that was definitely something new to all of us that now we know a lot more about.
Yeah.
If you go on our YouTube, you'll notice that we've had a lot of member changes. And every time we've had a member change, we've brought in someone who has taken the group more seriously or has kind of wanted to do more with the group than the previous member, if that makes sense. So that was really the biggest change over the past 4 years is that at the beginning, no one was expected to quit their day jobs at any point or anything like that. Whereas now we've got 5 people on board who like are 100% in on it, and we like all want to do this full time and make this a living.
Right.
Totally. Have there been challenges in that, trying to maintain a Backtrack image or brand or sound or anything like that?
Totally. First, YouTube freaks out anytime a member leaves the group. They think we're going to fall apart, and they don't realize that like we have lives and like we have lives outside of Backtrack. A lot of people like to call us discount pentatonics. And they just assume that we're like doing this 100% full time. And for most of the time we've been doing this, it's just literally a fun project for us.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the first thing, is that just YouTube always freaks out a little bit when we change members. The trickiest thing actually with the member changes has been catching them up for live performance, and that's been the most tiring thing. Just because we've got a repertoire about I'd say like 40 to 50 songs. So to teach a new member all of that music as quickly as possible, that's probably the trickiest thing as well.
Right.
So you guys have you'd mentioned that, for most of the time that Backtrack has existed, that you guys have been doing it as a side thing, but you have transitioned to doing it full time from when we were able to talk to you before. And so what was the catalyst that got you guys to take that step? And how has that transition been like?
It's hard to say if it was one thing. I think the biggest event that happened that kind of jump-started that was Melissa, our alto, joining the group. The member she replaced, Brett Parker, is one of my best friends still today, and he is a software developer who had absolutely no intention of doing music for a living. So because of that, we had absolutely he was kind of the last person in the group that was a hard no on the whole music for a living thing.
Right.
Whereas Melissa was way more open to that. So that member change was really big. Other than that, it was a lot of small things that happened. Our agents finding us for particular the college market, and them being able to promise us, or them being able to say that, we can get you bookings at colleges throughout the year, and just getting more paid opportunities
Right.
So when members are starting to receive money, we're starting to see that, oh, this is a possibility that we could actually do this full time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also you were just kind of talking about it before, but you guys are obviously doing gigs now and doing live performances. And I think I'd imagine starting on YouTube, you wouldn't, at the time, at least when you started, it was mainly for doing videos. And now that you've excelled and chosen to do this as a full-time thing, you kind of like live music is where salary, I'd imagine, would come from. So how has that transition sort of been from being like a group that mostly is used to creating videos versus doing a live performance, which is a completely different environment to express your music in?
So the first biggest thing was learning how to sing. None of us were really singing live for me, I wasn't singing live for about like 3 years.
Yeah.
So that was a big learning curve, and just learning how to perform. I think the best thing that we did early on was we were busking, aka street performing. And we did that in Union Square, where there's like in the subway station, like we got some sound equipment and just would go there and sing for 2 to 3 hours. That was the easiest way to just get performance reps in, make a little bit of money, but also we booked a couple gigs from that as well. So we were able to get good at singing live fast because of that, and just going out there and performing as much as possible.
Right.
Also, I started to tailor our arrangements more towards singing live. So not making everyone yell super high notes all the time, and giving singers rests and things like that, like small things that that would make arrangements easier to sing live than they are to record.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the big ones, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say, so it seems like there's kind of like a DIY spirit at the beginning in a lot of various aspects of Backtrack, and just like learning as you go.
No, I totally know what you mean about the whole DIY thing. We have always thought of ourselves as like entrepreneurs just as much as we are musicians, especially once we started taking this more seriously. So the whole process of making YouTube videos has been a learning experience, and we learn from our mistakes. Unfortunately, everything is like super low risk in general. But even making that transition to performing live, every performance and every situation we put ourselves has been a learning experience, to figure out what we need to tell, from something as simple as what we need to tell the sound guy to get the sound we want, to making sure that our clients know exactly what they're getting, like in terms of sound. Like a lot of them will say, oh, you can just sing off mic, and we're like, no, if we have to fill a hall of 200 people, we need equipment, and we can either bring it or you can provide it for us. You just got to let us know. To even just like booking gigs and things like that. So Melissa and Mallory head up our gig outreach, and they are busy contacting anyone who they can to try and get us booked at schools, weddings, basically any kind of paid performance.
Right.
And that has definitely been a huge learning experience, where we've spent a lot of time on some endeavors that have not paid off, but spent some time on a lot that has actually paid off.
Yeah. Because you are doing so many different gigs where it's various different audiences, whether it's a wedding or a college audience, how have you been able to, or have you found ways that you can connect with the audience in a certain way?
Just because we're doing so many different kinds of gigs.
Yeah. Like, because you're working with or performing for so many different audiences, how do you connect with a different audience from, say, like a wedding audience versus a college audience?
Yeah. The first is to figure out what the audience wants, or what kind of performance they want. So we'll do a lot of gigs where we are what we call quote unquote wallpaper music, where we just our background and a cocktail hour or something like that. So for like that kind of performance, we're not whipping out our most dynamic arrangements that are like super loud and like emotional. We're kind of just doing the fun music, what we consider fun, easy music, like an I Want You Back or Sweet Caroline or things like that.
Yeah.
When it comes to like college shows, or when we actually have our own show, especially when we're not doing them in front of friends and family, an hour of singing is not going to really entertain them. And we've had to figure out other ways to be entertaining as performers,
Right.
Whether it's a beatbox battle, teaching them how to beatbox. We used to do a bit where we'd read mean comments we got on YouTube, which is a fun one.
That sounds fun.
Or as something as simple as like showing like a brief run through of the arranging process, just like a behind the scenes look. Yeah, we've kind of had to like learn how to be as entertaining as possible, like beyond just sounding good, because there's a lot more to being a performer than just being a great musician. So it's funny, we'll do all these different kinds of performances and we'll make our set list. And when we feel that the vibe is different than what we expected, we'll just like completely go off script and change our set list on the spot, just because we want to we're just in a situation that's completely different than what we expected.
Right.
What's interesting to me is that you guys are, you're gigging regularly, you're doing this thing and being very successful at it. But in many ways, Backtrack is heavily self-contained and insular in some ways. So I was just wondering, like, being a group based in New York, what it's like, if at all, if you're interacting with the scene in the city, what that's like. Because I know there's big regional differences from, the Northeast to the Midwest to the West Coast to New York. So, like, what is it like being a group in New York? And is there anything about being in New York that, like, influences your style and the choices that you make?
Yeah, so I know the New York scene right now isn't huge in the greater acapella community sphere.
Right.
Especially, there's a huge post-collegiate scene in New York. The thing about it is these are groups that rehearse once a week and mostly sing at bars. And we'll do some competitions and performances around the area. We're pretty close to a lot of the different groups in New York City. We'll perform with them regularly, and a lot of them are just our close friends in general. Up until now, we haven't really been that immersed in the acapella scene as a whole. So that's something definitely that we are hoping to do over the next year. Part of that is with the ICA Open, like doing that and competing in that. Also, we're just hoping to maybe get more involved in festivals, and that's something we're definitely looking to do in the future, especially now that we've kind of figured out what our sound is and like what makes us different as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. So sadly, we are nearing the end of our episode today, but we like to pose 2 questions to all of our guests. And the first question is, what sort of trends do you see in the acapella sphere community, musical trends do you see that you are a fan of and looking forward to seeing more of in the future?
I'm really excited I'm excited to see where the beatbox community gets involved in acapella.
Yeah.
Being in New York, this is where the American beatbox scene is. Johnny, our beatboxer, runs sound for the Beatbox House guys, and who basically run the American champs here. So, and they're starting to make groups that are like little beatbox groups as well.
Right. Yeah.
That are starting to turn into acapella. They just approach music completely differently than acapella groups do, which is really interesting. So I'm really excited to see like how that influences acapella, and definitely like we're seeing a lot of acapella groups incorporating some beatbox techniques as well. We try to be on the forefront of that as much as possible.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's probably the most exciting thing I think is right now.
And then the second question is just what's on the agenda for you, maybe with Backtrack or not, or just in general, what sort of projects do you have coming up?
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, preparing for the Open is our September thing right now. Outside of that, beyond that, we have a pretty packed October and November schedule, just because that's when a lot of our college performances are.
Yeah.
And Melissa and Mallory did an awesome job of getting us booked at a bunch of high schools and middle schools around the New England area.
Nice.
So we have a pretty packed performing schedule, and obviously December is a busy time as well with holiday music. Beyond that, we're looking to write some more original music and record an EP.
Yay.
which I know is like a big thing that a lot of groups are trying to do. And I think just trying to make this a full-time thing, like as much as or as consistently as possible.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Andrew, for coming on. It was a real joy talking to you, and we hope that you will join us next week for a new episode of Headvoice.